If you were asked to read this document, let's call it document A, or this one, document B, which one would you go for? I reckon you'd probably go for document B. Why? Well, document A looks like a lot of hard work. You're really going to have to concentrate if you want to understand what that one's all about. Document B, on the other hand, looks way easier. The text is broken up into short paragraphs. There are bullet points and subheadings. Compared to document A, document B looks like a walk in the park. Things like paragraphs, bullet points, and subheadings are all examples of layout techniques, or sometimes they're called layout features. And they're there to help the writer get her message across without giving you, the reader, a migraine in the process. We can divide layout techniques into 3 categories. 1, techniques that make the text easier to read and understand. 2, techniques that highlight important information. And 3, techniques that give you an idea of what the text is all about. In this little video, we'll look at 8 layout features and decide which of those 3 categories each of those layout features belongs to. So, let's begin by going back to that lovely, friendly-looking document B. We've already identified 3 layout techniques that the writer uses to get their message across: short paragraphs, subheadings, and bullet points. These are 3 techniques that make the text easier to read and understand. So how about techniques that highlight important information? To highlight important information in this document, the writer uses 2 techniques: bold text and italics. If you ever see something in bold, in this case medicines and phone numbers, or in italics, in this case advice and warnings, you can bet your best fidget spinner it's important information. So we can put those 2 techniques in that category of techniques that highlight important information. Last of all, which techniques give you an idea of what the text is all about? If you could only look at 1 or 2 things on the page to get an idea of what the text is about, which would they be? The picture and the heading, right? Judging from the picture, a young boy with a thermometer in his mouth, we can predict that document B will be talking about children's health. And the title, Treating a Fever in Children, doesn't beat about the bush either. It serves up in just a few words exactly what the text is going to be about. So these 2 techniques belong in the give you an idea of what the text is all about category. Well, that's a mouthful. There we have it. 8 techniques or layout features that help the writer to get her meaning across. Wait a second, there are only 7 here. We must be missing one. Ah yes, this last one is a nifty little thing called a table. When different people's ideas are divided up into their own little rectangle, we call that layout technique a table. And which category do you think this technique belongs to? Exactly, techniques that make the text easier to read and understand. Now, to the exam. In the Level 1 Functional Skills English exam, towards the end of the paper, you might be asked a question like, which techniques does the writer use to get their ideas across? Or, identify layout features, or explain how the layout features help the reader. Although these questions are all slightly different, they are asking you for pretty much the same thing: to pick out a couple of layout techniques like the ones we've looked at today, and explain how they help the reader. Usually this question carries 4 points, and to get those 4 points you need to find 2 techniques, you get 1 point for each, and explain how each of those 2 techniques helps the reader, again 1 point each, so 4 points altogether. So in your answer you could say, the writer uses short paragraphs There's your 1 point, which makes the text easier to read and understand. There's another point, that's 2. The writer also uses bold text, that's another point, which highlights important information. And that's another point too. So there you have it. Your answer has got you the maximum 4 points and not a migraine in sight.